We're super excited to be bringing you our first tutorial on our brand new Geode Agate Coaster Molds that you can pour resin into a couple different ways. In this video, we're going to be using mica powders. Once the mold is done, I'm going to be embedding some crystals on the front of it. I'm mixing up Nokon Blue by Eye Candy Pigments. This is my absolute favorite pigment color by them. It's a rich, deep blue that has blacks in it as well. When you're using mica, you want to make sure your sticks are clean, so I use a toothpick to scoop up any extra mica powder. You do want to mix it and mix it. I mixed this for probably 10 minutes to get it perfect and kept adding more powder. I think I ended 10 of those little scoops to get it to the deep blue color. I am going to add some glitter from Glitter Hippo. It's a blue glitter just to give it a little bit more sparkle here. What's great about our molds, or these Geode Agate molds, is they're very deep. They're about a ½ inch thick, so it gives you the room to embed things, to color the backs of things, where molds from overseas are usually only less than 1/4 of an inch thick. So this gives you some breathing room to be able to do some cool stuff with it. I've just added the glitter and now I'm going to be pouring into the molds. As you see, we call these rivers and islands. The islands are the big masses, just like an island is, and the river flows through the islands and around it to make the outside of the circle. I'm pouring in, trying to get it into the river areas first to make sure the resin gets all the way to the front. This is one way that you can pour in this mold. I'll show you another way in our second video. Once I've poured a little bit in there, I tap the molds to try and release any air bubbles that might be on the surface. You can also use a silicone stick. I'm using a toothpick here, which is not recommended, but I'm not touching the top of the mold. I'm just running it through the river area to try and dislodge any bubbles if they are there. A silicone pointed tool would also work in this mold itself. I love the way this blue color is looking already. In this video, I'm going to be embedding some crystals in it, and you'll see how pretty they look against the blue once the resin has all been poured in. Total resin for these is just over 3 ounces. The river areas each hold about 1 ounce of resin each. And one of the molds, I'll have the calculations in the description area. One of the molds I think holds around 3.1 or 3.4 ounces of resin. I think I mixed up 7 ounces of resin to do both of these just to make sure I had enough. And you can always use the extra resin in another project. Making sure the molds are filled up here. We're going to leave them to cure. However long that takes with your resin. Ours is usually at least 12 hours. So we're back the next day and demolding it for the next step in the process. I will say, because we have so many islands in here and the river section is so deep, it does take a little bit of effort to pull these out of the molds. And another thing we'll notice, the top of the river section and the finished piece will be shiny, but as you see, the bottoms are matte. And they show tool marks from how we made the mold itself. So the bottom of the island areas are not going to be shiny. You have to do something to make them shiny. Now, since we're going to be embedding crystals, you can actually use resin, but in this case, I chose DecoArt Glossy Varnish. And as you see, I put a lot in there. I cut that's a little pipette I'm using, and I cut the end off and it gave me way too much. So I went and got a new one and started siphoning off some of the excess into the other areas. What I'm trying to put down here is the varnish will work as a glue like resin would. You can put resin in this same way. I'm giving it a bit of a resin/glue base for the crystals to stick to. The reason I chose to use the varnish, the DecoArt varnish, is it dries clear, where every time I've used crystals and put resin on top of it, the resin kind of submerges the crystals, which I don't like that look so much. It's okay, but I prefer this varnish effect better. Now I'm going to take a paintbrush and just kind of go into every little nook and cranny because there's a lot of them. Just giving it something for the stones to adhere to. Now, as you see, I still have so much varnish on the first coaster. I'm just painting over onto the second one with the excess that I'm picking up from the first one. Again, we've speeded this up a bit just so you didn't have to watch me painting every spare inch of this thing. The coasters do measure 4.5 inches across, so they're a great size for pretty much any kind of cup or glass. So now I have some Angel Aura Quartz crystals, which we also sell in our shop, and I'm just filling the island areas with the stones. We've sped this up and we've cut a lot out of it because I was very anal retentive, making sure I had crystals in every little nook and cranny. And I'm tapping them down as well because I don't want them sticking up past the river section because that would dislodge any sort of glass that was on top of it. As a matter of fact, you'll see me at some point putting a jar on top of it and tapping it around. That's so I'm making sure that no crystals are sticking up that I can't see. Here I am filling up the second one with Angel Aura Quartz, and you can use any kind of crystal here. I've used Amazonite, carnelian, I've used glass if you look at some of our other products. I haven't used flowers yet, but I know a lot of people submerge flowers in resin, so feel free to try that if you buy these molds from us. I think flowers would be an excellent suggestion. So now, you see me tapping the little thing around on there. Now that the crystals are in there, I'm going to take more of the varnish with the pipette. Doesn't that Nokon blue look gorgeous? That's me testing it again to make sure no crystals are sticking up. So I'm going to take the pipette again with the varnish from DecoArt, and I'm just going to coat from top down, go into every corner. It doesn't matter, just make sure you don't get it on the river area because you'll have to clean it up. I'm just coating the stones so they adhere together. It takes a little bit longer, probably at least 24 hours for the varnish to completely dry, where resin would dry quicker. But I really like the finish again from the varnish because it just isn't there. It looks like nothing is there holding it together. And as long as the stones are underneath, or whatever you put in this river or the island areas, as long as it's underneath the river, you don't need to top coat these pieces at all, which saves another step in the process. Now we're on to the second one, same thing. And as you see, one of the coasters has 6 island areas and the other one has 11. We did that purposely so they weren't matchy-matchy, where it was still the Geode Agate look, but you had 2 different looks. You can kind of tell the stones there look a little bit bluish once the liquid's on them and when the front is white, but once it's dried, it'll be all clear. There's the DuraClear gloss varnish from DecoArt. And there's the finished pieces. I think they look great, don't you?